What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Orb Minus. This is a bit weird because I wanted to do a ranged video. I slept a little late. It is now very, very late. And unfortunately, the sun has gone down and I can no longer shoot on the range, at least for this weekend. I might shoot later. I don't know. Before we get into the video, I guess I ought to explain a couple things. One, it's been a minute since I posted a video on this channel. That is because I have 4 YouTube channels, right? Let's break that down real quick. I have Orb's Vaults, Orb's Vault, right? That channel specifically, that hosts all the streams I do on Twitch and YouTube. Yes, that's right, folks. I stream to both in video content, video form. So, on stream, specifically streaming, right? Streaming takes a lot of bandwidth. And as a result, because I live out in the boonies, the quality sucks. So I also record my streams. So in the event you guys go to said stream and you don't know exactly what you're looking at, why it's pixelated, why is it skipping, why is it buffering, it might not be on your end. It's very much so on mine. I am aware of it. My best fix to this is after stream, I will take the video of said stream in its entirety and upload it to the channel. That way, you have a crisp, clear, quality picture of everything that's occurring. You can hear my audio on stream just fine. Sometimes it'll buffer, sometimes it won't. It's back and forth. It's a day-to-day thing. The channel hosts that same stream in clear quality, super smooth all the way around, and the audio is there as well. I reply to anyone who sends chats over stream if you guys actually tune into that kind of thing. And I mean, yeah, I make videos out of those streams. As for the other 3 channels, I've divided them up similar to that of an atom. You have Orb Plus, the positive orb of the atom. Orb Plus hosts positive things that YouTube deems okay to have on their platform, right? Essentially, it's new. I haven't posted much because I haven't had a hobby that perfectly fit it. I'm working on that, and if you've seen any of the content on that channel, you'll understand that it is a random, absolute anything and everything could go there so long as it's safe for YouTube, child-friendly, the like, because yeah, YouTube's rules. Second channel, because I can't really go into further detail on that without giving away some of the content I have. I have Orb, the neutral one, completely in the middle. That is the one channel I have for gaming. All of the video games I play, whether it be board game, card game, video game, if the word game is mentioned in there anywhere, it'll be on that channel. I have over 100 videos on that channel right now, with very, very few shorts that I have taken from those videos. I'm not good at finding the best moments. I just record and have fun. I'm happy editing a video and posting it from that point on. But yeah, that is my pride and joy, that Orb channel, just ORB, plain and simple. I can play games and I can have fun for hours on end just playing games. Orb Minus, this channel, the one you're watching, is everything YouTube does not like. That includes firearm content, and usually, typically, this channel is based around firearms. Why? Because it is a passionate hobby of mine. I do like guns. I enjoy shooting guns. I have a collection that I love to go to the range with and have fun with. Sometimes YouTube just doesn't care. They don't like guns at all. So, I guess I ought to go into why I'm not doing range stuff, but at the same time, I think I already pretty much covered that. It's late in the day. I'm set by the rules in my time zone, and I can't really work outside of them. And due to the 12-hour shift I work, weekdays are a nightmare to record because I'm either up so late in the afternoon I only got 20 minutes, and it takes about an hour and a half just to set up recording. I don't have a team, it's just me. It's next to impossible to do it in the afternoon on a weekday. Weekends are so limited, I can't shoot Sundays because I live between two churches. Go figure there. I don't want to disturb them. And Saturdays are my only free day. And if I wake up too late due to the 12-hour shift I work, I'm bent. I'm bent out of shape. I don't want to stress myself over it. I really, really don't. So today's video is going to be more on the boring side, I guess, because I wanted to shoot smiley faces this weekend, but I woke up and someone said, we have Christmas in a week, and I completely forgot. So, without further ado, I don't know what I'm going to do for this video. What should I do for this video? Huh? You, right? You. Comment down below. Give me some video ideas that don't involve the shooting range and don't involve inappropriate stuff for YouTube. Because I don't know what to do, honestly. This coming year is going to be interesting because a lot of things are changing rapidly right now. And it is uncertain what exactly is going to happen next year, so I'm making the most of what I have right now. I am open to suggestions. I'll go ahead and swap views here so you guys got a good picture. Poor buddy. So, I guess the history of firearms is a good place to start because I can't really think of anything good to think of right now. One moment. Oh, H is rough week. Good grief. Alright. I guess we'll just go with the history of firearms. I don't know what's credible in this, aside from man was first to find rock and think no bueno, right? I didn't know this. I don't know if that's true or not. When the first firearms called fire lances were invented. To contain gunpowder projectiles to spears. Interesting. They were used in the siege of Dian. Interesting. Metal barreled hand cannons in the 13th century. Fire lances were replaced with metal tubes. Gunpowder-based weaponry by the 14th century. Gunpowder-based weaponry. And then more refined firearms. Cool. Should we just watch a video? Let's watch a video and learn, because I'd like to learn. I don't know what all is true, what all is not. I would highly recommend fact-checking, because, yeah.
Hi, I'm Griffin Johnson, the Armchair Historian. Few inventions have had as great an impact on human history as firearms, and few inventions have had as great an impact on firearms as industrialization. Before the 19th century, firearms were crafted by individual gunsmiths, each pistol or musket a unique work. With the introduction of factories and mass production, guns could be made in unprecedented numbers, and when paired with the burgeoning fields of chemistry and metallurgy, a new chapter.
Bro, is that a mod deuce? I know this is fake. This is a fake wallpaper rack here. You can see the animation in it. And obviously, the sun rays are just crazy, and that's, yeah. But what is this? What is this right here? I wonder.
In military history was opened. In this video, we will look at the evolution of firearms throughout the 19th century, examining how individually made muskets evolved into mass-produced rifles, and how the firepower of massed infantry was concentrated in terrifying new weapons like the Gatling gun.
No one likes ads.
Prior to the 19th century, the only commonly available form of chemical propellant was black powder, made with a simple mixture of sulfur, carbon, and potassium nitrate. Despite its usefulness on the battlefield, black powder was actually a low explosive, burning slower than the speed of sound and producing large amounts of chemical byproducts in the form of smoke and fouling. Black powder also required a source of ignition to start burning, meaning there was no practical way to design a firearm without including a cumbersome mechanism like a flintlock to generate a spark. But at the dawn of the 18th century, a British nobleman called Edward Charles Howard made a discovery that would shake the world to its core: fulminates. High explosive compounds that could be detonated by heat or pressure. Suddenly, a whole new world of destructive potential had been unlocked, breaking a technological barrier that had stood for more than 600 years. Gunsmiths
All of a sudden, I have a reminder of the Breaking Bad scene. You know the one.
quickly saw the potential in fulminates, leading to the patenting of the percussion cap in 1822 by American inventor Joshua Shaw. This was a simple metal cylinder containing a speck of mercury fulminate detonated by the impact of a striking mechanism, generating a controlled explosion to ignite the powder charge of a loaded firearm.
So I'm sure he'll probably get into it later on, considering this goes all the way to 1901. But that has been since revised, and of course, science and ingenuity, as well as the revolution. I don't know about revolution. I'm going to say the ingenuity increase between 1837 and 1901 was so stark that instead of having the primer on this little pedestal like he's describing, right here in this little pocket, I guess, for that to come down, the hammer to come down and strike, they've reinvented it to where it's the same mechanism, except the primer is now attached directly to the cartridge, which holds a charge and a projectile. So it's all in one unit, and they can further place this hammer on a more low profile.
But European armies were hesitant to.
I feel as though, in my genuine opinion, if we had stuck with this kind of design here, and the ingenuity wasn't so vast, I'm more than confident in saying that those who despise or are against firearms in the first place would still be on their same side. However, they wouldn't be as what's the word? Pursuant of restricting them to the general public, because to load a musket takes a minute. If you got like super good, I think the time was like 35 seconds, something like that. But for an amateur who doesn't know anything about what this is, it could take them easily 10 minutes just to load, or 5 minutes even, just to load one musket ball with, they would assume, a correct load. But if they're wrong, that could easily blow up in their face. And of course, much, much more dangerous compared to the small amount in just a case of today's technology, right? But yeah, I feel as though even if this had stayed the same and it were just progressed in this same format, we'd still have those who would say I'm
take
still
advantage
against.
of the percussion cap, and though many trials were conducted, it was not until the 1840s that the widespread replacement of the flintlock began in earnest. One of the first conflicts that proved the
That was Ernest. E-A-R nest, right? I know Ernest can be a name, but Ernest is a word used to describe the pursuant of something at a certain speed. Ernst?
The value of the percussion cap musket, or caplock, was the Mexican-American War. Though U.S. forces began the war using Model 1816 smoothbore flintlock muskets, various armories had already started mass converting these obsolete weapons into caplocks. American gunsmith Samuel Colt had also patented the first cap-and-ball revolver in 1836, which became...
We gotta keep in mind a couple things. When the musket was invented, yes, there was science involved. Yes, there was a goal involved to make it more efficient for war, right? However, those at the time who didn't really understand the concept of that chemical equation, most of whom at the time, and this is talking on American history behalf, we were farmers. We weren't soldiers. We weren't army men. We weren't anything. We had very, very next to nothing little. So a lot of the firearms, the muskets, and of course a lot of the other, not primitive, but semi-modern, I'm going to say, because they're still pretty dang old. The musket's been around since before 1776, for the most part. People were still using swords, bows and arrows, slingshots, bayonets, maces, medieval tools alongside firearms. They even have bayonets attached to some muskets because they thought all that range, if I can't shoot a bullet and it's not fast enough for me to reload, or easy replacement for a sword, put a pokey stick at the very end of it, right? Of course, nowadays, I think this is frowned upon if you were to put a bayonet at the end of a muzzle. But back then, this is what the warfare was built around.
Highly sought after by any U.S. soldier able to afford one. Most iconic of all was the legendary 1847 Colt Walker single-action revolver, specifically procured by Texas Rangers after earlier designs failed to meet their...
How different a gap is that? From guns being made for warfare to guns being made to govern citizens. It's a funny... I find that funny. If it's actually factual that guns went from that to that, and what he just said was absolutely true, I would advise fact-checking it. I find that funny.
Their expectations. Known as the gun that won the West, the Colt Walker could fire 6.44 caliber bullets before needing to be reloaded, and was considered one of the most powerful handguns in the world until the 1930s. Mexico, meanwhile, was forced to rely on imports of British Brown Bess flintlock muskets and lacked the domestic gun industry needed to refurbish these old weapons up to modern standards.
You know that feeling when you're watching a movie and because of something that you have no control over happens. When you get back to watching the movie, your head just goes blank because you're still stuck doing what you were doing 2 seconds ago. My head's in that space and it's actually driving me nuts because I actually want to know some of this stuff. But because of 2 seconds ago, my head's no longer in the space.
Back in Europe, the period of relative peace following the end of the Napoleonic Wars ended abruptly with the outbreak of the Crimean War in...
I am no history person. Like, I don't really do much history stuff. I think the people who are against guns are wrong. Because even without guns, before guns, go back to the first recordings of man, there was violence. Even then.
In 1853, widely regarded as the first truly modern war. By this point, most nations had begun issuing cap-lock muskets as their standard infantry weapon, and rifled barrels were starting to become commonplace. But soldiers were still exclusively using muzzle-loaded guns, with powder and bullets inserted via the end of the
because either they didn't have the resources or the government those soldiers represent was too cheap. They didn't want to outsource any more material than what they had to supply their soldiers stuff that would actually have saved their lives.
Muzzle and pushed down using a ramrod. This imposed serious limitations on both accuracy and rates of fire. Lead shot would rattle around inside the barrel of a smoothbore musket, greatly reducing accuracy. Rifled barrels were designed to grip a bullet tightly and spin it, but the spiral grooves meant that muzzle loading required violently hammering the bullet down with a ramrod. Many potential solutions to this problem had been proposed, but it was not until just before the Crimean War that a breakthrough occurred. In 1849, two French army captains named Claude-Étienne Minier and Henri Gustave Delvigne had invented the Minier ball, a cylindrical bullet with etched rings and a conical indentation at its base. When fired, hot gases pushed the thin lead walls of this indentation outwards, engaging the rifling and creating a hard seal with chamber walls. Within 4 years, the French army had adopted the pattern Minier 1851 rifle and licensed.
Through what he just said, the cylindrical thing with the carved rings and the indent at the base of it reminds me of something my dad said about the end of a shoelace, that little hard bit. Someone who made that for shoes that had those laces at the time probably made very little money to start with, but in all reality, because he invented that, shoelaces were more durable as a result. That's a lot of money to be made from a simple invention such as that, and I can only imagine the money the guy made from inventing that kind of thing, or if he even made money at all, which if he didn't, it kind of sucks, but I guess that's kind of the world we live in. You can invent something, someone else could come by and say, nope, that's mine. It's not fun. If you guys want to check out this video, I'll leave a link down in the description to this exact video on YouTube. Be sure to check it out. Give credit to the guy who actually did his research and posted this, if his research is factual. Yeah, give him a like on this video. I'll be sure to do so. And just so we're on the same page, in order to like a video that's on YouTube, you have this button right here. You can see the number of likes this man has. I'm going to throw one more in there. His channel is the Armchair Historian, right? And this link right here, I'll just go ahead and Control-C that. So that way it's firmly grasped. Once I'm good with this recording, I'll put that link in the description, and you guys can also be sure to check this video out. Right here's your subscribe button. If you're watching this channel, it's in literally take a look at your screen. Boom, it's right there. Hit that subscribe button. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to this guy. I'm gonna subscribe to him because I want to. And I'm actually curious if his stuff is factual or not. If it's not, I'll learn my lesson through the comment section. As for the comment section, boom, you have all kinds of comments down here. I'll just go ahead and add one. I think that's an appropriate response. I'm going to use his content.
The technology to the British, who implemented it in the form of the P.51 and P.53 Enfields. Although some older models were still in use, the Minier rifles were a powerful force multiplier on the battlefields of Crimea, being some of the very first guns to successfully combine high accuracy and long range with a high rate of fire in an affordable package. But while the Minié rifle was undoubtedly one of the most advanced mass-produced firearms of its time, it would soon be superseded by breech-loading rifles. Breech-loading guns could fire faster than any muzzleloader, but were subject to their own suite of issues. The worst was that of hot gases escaping from the breech during powder ignition, lowering projectile velocity and potentially burning the shooter's face if firing from the shoulder. The Norwegian army was one of the first European powers to adopt a breech-loading rifle as its standard infantry weapon in the form of the M1842 Kammerlader, which used a unique crank-operated mechanism to tightly seal the breech prior to firing. But although the Kammerlader was an excellent design, the thick, heavy breech mechanism was destined for obsolescence as the science of metallurgy advanced in leaps and bounds throughout the long 19th century. While the great powers of Europe were busy with the Crimean War, the Kingdom of Prussia was busy looking to leapfrog ahead of its competitors by adopting the breech-loading Zündnadelgewehr, or needle ignition rifle, otherwise known as the Dresa needle gun. Initially prototyped by Johann Nicolaus von Dresa in the 1820s, the needle gun used an innovative new bolt-action mechanism that made it easy to load and fire in any position. Instead of using a hammer or serpentine, pulling the trigger caused a sharp metal needle to punch through the paper cartridge in the breech and detonate the percussion cap, hence the term needle gun. The bolt-action mechanism was lightweight, and the entire weapon could be easily field-stripped in the heat of battle, allowing for the rapid replacement of damaged parts. This was an important addition, as Dresa's design was at the bleeding edge of firearms technology. The needle was the most commonly replaced part of the mechanism, and the imperfect gas seal lowered overall performance.
I think that could be said for many modern firearms as well. If you purchase poor quality equipment, such as firing pins, bolt carrier groups, the like, or any towards any connection point, so from barrel to receiver, from receiver to receiver, you're going to see the most wear where things move a lot. And because rifles tend to heat up, you're going to see a lot more wear towards the chamber than anywhere else on the rifle. For pistols, it's the same story, except there's a little bit more complicated with today's mechanics. Typically, though, you don't see a lot of guns exploding or just breaking unless the charge is overpowered. You have an over pressured load, or the equipment in the gun is so fragile that any pressure at all would snap it and make it inoperable. If for any reason you're building a firearm, always be sure to make sure the material you're purchasing is what is listed and is to your desired spec, so that way you're operating the safest equipment in the safest manner.
Nonetheless, the benefits of the needle gun vastly outweighed its early problems, and following the Crimean War, most European nations would adapt the design.
Is it me, or does he look like Mr. Bean? Is that what the teddy bear's like there for? Is to call out Mr. Bean?
And bolt-action features for their own standard infantry rifles. At this point, I'd like to take a brief moment to discuss some of the important considerations commanders of the day had when it came to new firearms. By far, the biggest was logistics. Infantry rifles needed to be cheap and easy to mass produce. Prior to the invention of steel casing in the mid-1800s, firearms were hand-tooled, relying on skilled gunsmiths to produce consistent results. But even after the advent of mass production, military thinkers preferred to rely on centuries-old tactics. Conscript armies marched in massed formations, so the need for individual firepower was de-emphasized. More complex guns meant more training, making soldiers harder to replace. For many nations, it was simply easier to rely on quantity over quality. A great illustration of how quickly firearms evolved during the latter half of the long 19th century is found in the American Civil War, and the Spencer repeating rifle used by some Union cavalry regiments. The Spencer repeating rifle was among the first ever magazine-fed rifles adopted into military service, and one of the first to use both a lever action mechanism and a metallic cartridge. Spencer rifles had a tubular opening bored through the buttstock, into which up to 7 cartridges could be inserted nose first. Lowering the lever allowed a spring to push a cartridge into the receiver, while raising it chambered the round, leaving only the hammer.
You can find some of the same stuff he's talking about in BB guns. I think nowadays the model, this model specifically, I can't remember the name. He just said it. I know. I'm sorry. My memory is that terrible. My head is that blank. However, looking at the mechanic he just demonstrated with the lever action, going down and allowing one to breach and then close, and then it locks the rest away from what's in the actual chamber itself. You can find that same mechanical structure on a BB gun. Today's standard BB gun you can go probably pick up at your local gun store. Essentially, though, that's this particular gist, if I'm not mistaken, is still used in some rifles today, but they're not as widely known for this because a lot of people prefer the charging handle on the standard AR-15 or any typical bolt-action rifle for the best accuracy and as quick maneuverability and function from that firearm.
Needing to be cocked before the rifle was ready to fire. This meant a Spencer repeater could empty its 7-round magazine in less than 15 seconds. To Confederate troops, still using mostly muzzleloaders like the Enfield Pattern 1853, encounters with Union cavalry armed with Spencer repeaters were utterly devastating, with a half-dozen mounted troops easily able to dismount and match the firepower of a whole platoon armed with caplocks. Another secret to the success of the Spencer repeater was its use of a metal cartridge, the first prototypes of which had been created all the way back in 1808 by Swiss gunsmith Jean-Samuel Pauly. Prior to his work, paper cartridges containing bullet, powder charge, and primer had been common, but metal cartridges protected their contents from the elements much better, and created a natural seal against gas leakage. One of the first commercially successful firearms using metal cartridges was the Model 1 revolver released by the Smith & Wesson Company in 1857, which used...
That is a shocker, and a piece of history I did not know. I own 2 500 Magnum from Smith & Wesson, and to be frank, those are some really fun revolvers. Very, very, very well made. It's interesting to see that company survive for as long as it has.
.22 rimfire ammunition, where the primer was contained in a small metal lip around the rear wall of the casing. The Spencer repeater also used a rimfire cartridge, but even by the 1860s, gunsmiths were transitioning to centerfire rounds, with the primer located in a recessed cup at the base of the round. This enabled much higher powder loads, allowing metallic cartridges to be scaled up to rifle calibers.
Proceeds to show a 20mm.
Though weapons like the Spencer repeater made a dramatic entry onto the world stage, they would soon be overshadowed by something bigger still, something that would change the face of warfare forever. That something was the Gatling gun, designed by Richard Jordan Gatling and patented in 1861. With an innovative hand-cranked mechanism that rotated 6 barrels around a
Some of those can still be purchased today, even. However, it's I don't know if it's considered NFA or not. I would highly recommend looking into that if you're interested in getting a Gatling gun. I know there are some Gatling guns where you have to have that hand crank and it will fire each round individually down that set barrel it's in. My understanding, though, is if you attach anything to the crank, that is a felony under United States law, so be sure to check your laws before doing anything to your firearm that might potentially be illegal for the ATF, I guess.
Central shaft
lose your
and
puppy.
loaded them individually from a steel cylinder filled with paper cartridges, the Gatling gun was capable of firing not just dozens, but hundreds of rounds per minute.
Depending on how fast and how good you are with your arm and moving, because it goes as slow as you are when not mechanically torqued. So you go slow, it shoots slow. You go fast, it shoots fast. Per minute, per crank.
Designs like the French mitrailleuse and Union Ager gun also existed, but came with severe drawbacks. The mitrailleuse only fired a single shot from each of its dozen barrels before needing to be reloaded, making for tremendous volleys but poor sustained firepower. The Ager gun, meanwhile, used a complex revolver mechanism that was taxing to operate, and its single barrel rapidly overheated. The Gatling gun was the design that bridged the gap between the repeating firearm and the artillery piece, being a crew-served weapon designated to engage enemy forces with continuous direct fire using rifle-caliber ammunition.
Some of them can be used in pistol caliber too. I know a few today, modernly, that you can get that have been changed and modified to accompany 9mm and can take a Glock mag, for instance. They can still be purchased, but again, I would highly recommend looking at your state and local laws as well as your federal laws. So that way, if you're ever interested in one of those, you know what you're getting yourself into.
Astonishingly, though, the first Gatling guns were regarded as almost useless by both Union and Confederate generals, given their propensity for jamming and the vast clouds of powder smoke they generated. Richard Gatling was forced to take his design overseas, resulting in the Gatling gun quickly becoming the weapon of choice for European militaries looking for more concentrated firepower against large armies.
I find it funny how when anti-gunners sit there and say guns are inherently bad for Americans and the American firearm history stuff, like everything about Americans having firearms is so appalling to them. They think it ought to be erased, but in reality, if you take a look at other countries, they have more of a gun history than we do. And we are younger than they are. Like, it makes sense additively, but in retrospect, we have made more innovations in firearms. If I am not mistaken, Americans have made more innovations in the firearm industry compared to other countries, but other countries are the founding fathers of making these firearms.
Of native troops in Africa and other colonial territories.
I guess that goes to show how much research they've done.
In 1870, the Franco-Prussian War pitted German troops armed with Dresa needle guns against French infantry armed with chassepot rifles. Though Prussian artillery and tactics would quickly rout the French army, the newer chassepot proved superior to the Dresa, featuring a superior gas seal and faster projectiles that caused enormous wounds at much longer ranges. Realizing they were at a disadvantage, the Germans urgently began seeking a replacement rifle after the war ended. The Mauser company stepped up to the challenge with the Mauser Model 1871, a bolt-action design that proved far more robust than the delicate needle gun. By now, the age of single-shot rifles was quickly coming to an end. And in 1884, Mauser's design was updated to become one of the first standard-issue infantry long arms with a magazine similar to that of the Spencer repeater. Soon after, British-Canadian gunsmith James Paris Lee perfected an integral box magazine fed by stripper clips. But single-shot guns were not obsolete.
So for those of you who don't know what stripper clips are, essentially it's a small metal piece, like backing to modern-day magazines. Essentially, you take the heads of the bullets or the cartridges and you slide it in one by one, and then you feed it in as there's a clamp on the inside of the gun that bites down onto the lip, and then you just, with your finger, you can push every single cartridge down into the mag well, and from there it would feed up spring-loaded as though it was a modern-day magazine, but with another attachment, so you could load those cartridges in, and the gun could fire and operate as though you just loaded it with essentially first day magazine.
Yet, and designs like the Martini Henry rifle proved the perfect weapon for British troops operating all across their vast empire. In such remote territories, ammunition supply was a huge factor, and as ammunition grew more complicated, so too did the cost of shipping it out to the troops. This was also a drawback for guns like the Chassepot, whose rounds cost twice as much and were twice as hard to make.
That sounds a lot like the videos I make here. It doesn't cost me a bunch, but at the same time, my time is limited, and therefore I'm putting a lot of that towards making these videos. If you enjoyed it so far, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new or on the comeback, and leave a comment below. What do you think about the history? What avenues do you think we could have taken to avoid some of the stuff we have today? Like, for instance, school shootings and riots and all that other mess, right? What do you think about the gun history and, honestly, the different avenues we could have taken along the way to, I don't know, better ourselves, I guess? In all honesty, I believe that with the current state of today, we chose the best path possible, because we now have a culture that's not bent on destroying others, but more or less ready to have fun. We don't want to destroy people. We want to have fun with what we have and what we've created from the past. Acknowledging its dark history and respecting it is a key factor in explaining why Americans love and why others love firearms as much as they do. They respect it enough to understand they're not toys, they are tools to defend one's life, limb, and happiness. With that, let's continue on with the video.
As the simpler Dresa cartridges. Though many officers saw the potential of rapid-firing guns, they also recognized that their introduction would triple any military budget overnight and create new supply chain issues that would take decades to fully address. The 1880s would see two more giant leaps forward in firearms technology. The first came thanks to the work of British inventor Sir Frederick Abel, who patented a smokeless propellant known as cordite in 1889. Cordite was a mixture of newly discovered chemicals such as...
So both those names can be found on the same packaging you buy for tannerite, and it's essentially the same stuff, except what's there listed is not the combination of, but instead it's the red packets on the inside of the little canisters you get, separate from the white powder, the BB stuff, right? You could see that in one of my previous videos if you want to go check that out. I don't really show those two names on the bottle because the text is very, very small and my camera doesn't want to focus on them. But just a fun fact, that same stuff can be found in tannerite.
Is nitrocellulose and nitroglycerin that burned far more cleanly and efficiently than black powder. The patenting of cordite and other similar formulas solved the issues of barrel fouling and excess smoke production, meaning that it was weapons like the Gatling gun which saw the largest benefits. While the idea of using the recoil of a discharging firearm to cycle the action and chamber a new round had existed since the 1870s, it was the work of British-American Hiram Stevens Maxim that created the world's first automatic weapon in 1884, the Maxim gun. With a single barrel encased in a water-filled jacket, the Maxim gun was relatively lightweight, at around 60 pounds, and could be operated by one man using a collapsible tripod, making it infinitely more portable than a carriage-mounted 170-pound Gatling gun. Much like its older counterpart, the Maxim gun was first employed by the colonial powers during the scramble for Africa. But with the advent of smokeless powder, the frequent jamming issues that plagued both rotary and automatic weapons finally became a thing of the past, and the Maxim gun was soon being bought by many European powers, ushering in the age of the machine gun. While previous inventions like the repeating
Thank you
rifle
for
had
allowing
shown
me to
the
spit, buddy.
obsolescence of Napoleonic-era tactics, it was the machine gun that would finally destroy all vestiges of the military status quo that had dominated Europe since the invention of the musket. As the long 19th century drew to a close, the arms race between nations only intensified. In the span of about 70 years, militaries had gone from using muzzle-loaded smoothbore muskets with an effective range of less than 50 meters to magazine-fed rifles that could land a bullseye over 600 meters, and machine guns were quickly coming to dominate the battlefield. Unfortunately, history has taught us that doctrine marches one step.
This is the span of World War I, is it not? I forget when World One ended, but I know two ended in 1945. This is legit the span, like Industrial Revolution, but for guns itself. And the evolution of, it says in the title, evolution of weapons from muskets to machine guns. But this is also the same time period World War One was in, and as a result, we got a lot of scientific ingenuity and better firearms out of. So,
Step behind technology. During the Great War, generals convinced they could replicate the lightning advances of the Franco-Prussian War threw thousands of men equipped with bolt-action rifles against entrenched machine gun positions, resulting in unspeakable losses. But even this deadlock did not last for long, as even more advanced weapons, like tanks and improved artillery, would eventually break these defensive lines and render them obsolete as well. If you want to experience the evolution.
but yeah, if that's been the evolution of weapons from muskets to machine guns from 1837 to 1901, and this was an animated history made, I assume, made by the Armchair Historian. You can check out his channel in the link to the description below. If you want to check out this video specifically, a link to it will also be in the description down below, so be sure to check both out. Links to all my other channels as well as social media can be found in that description. Be sure to check each one out. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new or on the comeback. And I promise the next time I have a video on this channel, it is going to be on the range. And we are going to be drawing smiley faces. So, stay tuned for that. Comment down below. Did you enjoy the video? Comment down below video ideas. Because, honestly, aside from going out in the range and actually shooting, I don't know much about the history of stuff or how to relate it to modern day funniness. So, I'm learning as we go, as between this and cruddy gun memes on Reddit. So, comment, help a brother out. I'm working on the videos and actually trying to make them good. I'm not here to give you trash. Just help me out. Help. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.